Please don't hurt the baby." The words trembled out of her like a prayer ripped in half, and if that sentence alone made your heart tighten, stay with me, because this story will test your faith in kindness, power, and love. Before we begin, if stories that move you, stories that remind you what it means to be human, matter to you, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. It truly helps these stories reach more hearts that need them. Now listen closely, because this is not just a story, it is a warning, a wound, and a miracle. The night Sophia fell to her knees on the marble floor of the mansion, the chandelier above her glittered like it was mocking her fear. She was only the maid, dressed in a faded uniform, hands raw from scrubbing floors that would never belong to her. Her belly was barely showing beneath the loose fabric, but she felt the baby move as if sensing danger. Standing before her was Vivian Hale, the millionaire's fiancée, beautiful in a sharp, cruel way, her heels clicking like a countdown to something terrible. Sophia's voice cracked as she begged, her hands instinctively shielding her stomach. "Please, I'll do anything. Just don't hurt the baby." Vivian laughed softly, the sound cold and polished. She had crossed many limits in her life, but tonight she felt untouchable. After all, she was engaged to Daniel Cross, one of the wealthiest men in the city, a man who owned hospitals, charities, and half the skyline. What could a maid possibly take from her? What threat could a baby born of nothing pose? Sophia had come to the mansion 2 years earlier, fresh from a small town, carrying grief and hope in equal measure. Her parents were gone, taken by a drunk driver who never even served time. She needed work, any work, and when the Cross estate hired her, she promised herself she would be invisible. Invisible people don't get hurt, she believed. For a long time, that worked. Daniel Cross barely noticed her at first. He was distant, polite, a man weighed down by responsibility and loneliness he never spoke of. Vivian, on the other hand, noticed everything. She noticed how Daniel relaxed when Sophia brought him tea late at night while he worked. She noticed how he listened when Sophia spoke, really listened, not like the men Vivian usually surrounded herself with. And most of all, she noticed the softness that crept into Daniel's eyes without his permission. The night everything changed was quiet. A storm had knocked out the power, and Sophia found Daniel alone in the study, staring into the dark. He spoke about his childhood, about being raised by money instead of love, about how success never filled the silence. Sophia listened, not because she wanted something, but because she understood loneliness. One conversation became many. Care turned into connection. Connection turned into a mistake neither of them meant to make. When Sophia realized she was pregnant, fear nearly swallowed her whole. She planned to leave quietly, disappear like she always had. But Vivian found out first. Now, standing over Sophia, Vivian's smile twisted. "Do you know what ruins a man like Daniel?" she said softly. "Scandal. Weakness. You think he'll choose you, a maid, over me?" Sophia shook her head, tears falling freely. "I'm not asking him to choose me. I'm just asking you, please. This baby is innocent." That was the moment Vivian crossed her limits. She ordered Sophia fired on the spot, threatened her with lawyers, with ruin, with making sure she never worked again. In her rage, she shoved Sophia. Not hard enough to kill, but hard enough to remind her who held the power. What Vivian didn't know was that Daniel had come home early. He heard the shouting. He saw Sophia on the floor, pale and shaking, her hands over her belly like a shield. Something in him broke open then. For the first time in his life, he saw cruelty without disguise. Sophia was taken to the hospital that night. The baby survived, but the doctor warned her stress could still steal everything. Daniel sat beside her bed until morning, his wealth useless against his guilt. He offered her money, protection, silence. Sophia refused the money. "Just don't let anyone hurt my child," she whispered. Vivian tried to recover. She cried, apologized, played the role she had perfected. But Daniel had changed. He began to see the world differently, how easily power crushed the vulnerable, how often silence sided with the cruel. He called off the engagement. The tabloids erupted. Vivian's friends vanished. Her family distanced themselves. For the first time, she tasted consequences. Sophia left the mansion weeks later, moving into a small apartment Daniel paid for without conditions. She worked part-time, went to prenatal appointments alone, and learned to trust herself. The baby kicked often, strong and stubborn, as if reminding her why she survived. Months passed. The birth was long and painful, but when Sophia held her child, a tiny girl with fierce lungs and curious eyes, she cried harder than she ever had. She named her Hope, not because life was easy, but because it wasn't. Daniel visited occasionally, always respectful, always careful not to cross a line. He helped quietly, using his resources to open a foundation for single mothers, inspired by a maid who once begged on a marble floor. He never asked Sophia for forgiveness, believing some things could only be honored, not erased. As for Vivian, she rebuilt her life slowly, stripped of illusion. Power had taught her nothing, but loss did. She never spoke to Sophia again, but she carried the memory of that night like a scar. Years later, Hope would run through a park, laughing, free, unaware of how close the world had come to crushing her before she even breathed. Sophia would watch her, heart full, knowing that love had won, not because it was loud, but because it endured. And if there is a message in this story, it is this: kindness is not weakness, and power does not give permission to destroy. Sometimes the smallest voices carry the greatest truths. If this story touched you, if it reminded you to protect what is innocent and stand up for those who cannot, please like this video and subscribe. Your support keeps these stories alive, and sometimes, stories are what save us.